In this video, I'm going to make the base and top for my cabinet, but this video is really more about the Triton Duo Domino joiner that I use to do the joinery on these pieces. Now, the use case of this and the functionality is similar to the Domino. Not exactly the same, but similar. The price point is $200, which is obviously a lot cheaper. And I was intrigued by this and also intrigued by the fact that the reviews on this thing are just horrendous. This is just a hated tool. No one online has anything good to say about it. So it was kind of a challenge. Can I get good performance out of this thing? Can I understand what's going on? So that's what I endeavored to do. Okay, so with the piece size, let's talk about why people hate this thing so much. So the first thing you notice about it, right out of the box, you just find that the force needed to compress the spring is crazy high. It actually takes about 60 pounds to fully plunge down into a workpiece, which is way too high. I mean, it feels really awkward, and it's made worse by the fact that the spring's only on one side of the track, which causes an asymmetric force and makes it jam and bind. So it just feels really terrible. So if you're going to buy this, I would highly recommend that you get a new spring. Now, I was not able to find a single spring with all the right dimensions and specifications to replace the one that came with the tool, but I was able to find a set of springs that I could buy from McMaster Carr. You have to buy 12 of them. You only need 4 of them. It's 18 bucks, and this works very well. Gets the full compression force down to 15 to 20 pounds, so about a third to a quarter of what it starts with. That feels really good. It's enough to get everything to spring back into position very quickly. It's enough to lift the body of the tool if it needs to. It's not so much that it feels overwhelming to fully compress it. It's not enough to cause that jamming in the track. Just really feels a lot better. So I highly recommend this. That link to the McMaster Carr springs is in the description of this video, so you can find it. But hang on a sec, there's more problems with this tool than just the spring. So the second thing people tend to notice is that there are these rubber stops that stick up past the plane of the base that cause some rocking on the workpiece. And then they put a square against the fence and the base and find that in its 90-degree stop position, it's nowhere near square. And the common conclusion at this point is just to say, well, this is a total piece of junk. And to be clear, I don't like this design, but I think there's a nuance being missed, because look at this. Those two mistakes are meant to cancel each other out. Do not take the rubber stops out. If you contact at the bottom of the base, the rubber stop, and then against the fence, it actually is very, very close to square from what I found. And if you don't have enough material to contact at the bottom of the base, that doesn't matter either, as long as the fence is solidly registered on the top of the workpiece, because those bits are meant to be parallel to the fence in its 90-degree stop position, not necessarily to the flat plane of the base. So it's really confusing and not intuitive. But if you have this understanding and use it this way, then I don't think it's quite as bad as what the online reviews might suggest it is. But hang on again, those rubber pads do cause one more problem that I need to address before getting into the build. Imagine you're at the end of a workpiece and both of those rubber pads aren't touching. You're going to be out of square, and that's a pretty substantial, it's like almost a 16th of an inch that they stick out, so it's going to be a substantial misalignment. So what I did is found little rubber pads the same thickness as the ones that come plugged into the machine, and just glued those on both sides. And this came up in my build because I did have some joinery that I wanted to do on the ends, where it wasn't going to touch the pads that come with the machine, but the ones I glued on kept everything aligned. So I'd recommend this modification. It could be little pieces of wood, as long as the thickness is right, then it's going to keep everything aligned the way it needs to be. So with the new spring and the additional pads, I was ready to go ahead and use this to fabricate my top and base for the cabinet. And everything went fine until the glue up, when, look at this, I ended up with a bit of a misalignment in the top surface of the pieces. Now I was able to just kind of bully it into place with some clamps, and it ended up working out fine, but that's not something I'd want to do every time, so I needed to figure out what was causing that. Now everything I've talked about so far has been a design issue. This is a quality issue. Look at this. The distance from the top of the workpiece to the holes is not the same because the plane of the fence is not parallel to the plane containing the two bits, and that's why pieces are ending up crooked when I put them together. So fixing this problem was the most frustrating of all of them by far. To do it, I took the tool apart. There's a casting that comprises the body of the tool and then one that holds the fence. I needed to change how these meet up with each other to drop one side of the fence and raise the other. And to do that, there are these little alignment pins. I put one in a drill and ground it down to give myself a little bit more play. That ended up not being enough, so I also drilled out the holes that it registers into. And after doing both these things and going back and forth about 4 times, taking apart and putting this back together, I was able to skew it enough to get everything lined back up with the fence the same distance from each of the bits, so that when I make a joint and put the two pieces together, they come together like this. Everything is all lined up now. So before wrapping this up, why don't you step into my office for a quick little chat about why I did this video. Alright, I just want to make a couple things clear. This is not a sponsored video. I bought this from the store. I didn't even get it for free. I'm not including any affiliate links in the description. I want to stay totally unbiased on this one. And I know the title of this video posed a question. Is this thing worth it? And the answer is, I don't know. The best I can do is show my journey trying to get performance out of this that I do think is decent after all that work. It did save me $800 versus the Domino or the Mafel. Mafel makes a dowel joiner similar to this in that same $1,000 price range. But it was a lot of work and tinkering, and there's no guarantee if you buy this that the issues you'll have will be exactly the same as what I ran into. So if you purchase this, definitely go into it with a mindset of, I'm going to have to think and tinker and be patient and really put a lot of effort into getting good results here. So it really comes down to how much time do you have and how much money do you have. I know for me, this probably was the right thing to do. I think it's going to get me decent results, and I'm glad I didn't have to spend the $800. It's $800 I can spend on something else now, and there's always stuff to spend money on in the shop. So I think that's it. I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you next time.